Evening to you. I wanted to say hello, and finally today I'm able to get YouTube to work. I tried it the other day, and I was using Internet Explorer, and I believe my browser is a little bit outdated. And since I'm on the college system, it won't allow me to update it, so I'm using um, Google Chrome, and that seems to be functioning. I guess it would, since it's it's a Google product, which is Google owns YouTube, and YouTube truly is one of my favorite sites overall. I use it a good deal in my in-class courses in particular. Um, we recently, and some students didn't find this too appealing, but it was very interesting. We watched a video in class on this forensic pathologist performing an autopsy of a person they suspected had died of some sort of drug. I can't remember which it was, but it was like a 10-minute video, and it went through the different parts of the body. And so in the video, this pathologist did a pretty nice job, at least in my opinion, of using jargon. So he used like a pulmonary embolism, so which is a blood clot of the lungs, but they made a determination that it was a post-mortem clot. So in essence, it occurred after the person died. So the clot did not cause the person's life to end. They also use one which I was not familiar with this one at all. When they open up the skull, they have to use kind of like a device that they use on metal, but they cut into the skull and they go around, and then they use a key, and they're able to lift off the skull and see inside. But inside of the top of your brain is something called the dura mater, which is a tough membrane that sort of lines the scalp and the skull rather, and it protects the brain from hits. But of course, football players and so on, if they get a hard hit, it that can't even protect it. And I wrestled when I was in junior high school, and college, and I remember one time that these two wrestlers were wrestling to compete on the varsity squad, and they hit simultaneously each other's skulls, and the one person like fell back and was frothing and so on at the mouth. It was very, very scary, but within about 3 or 4 minutes he came out of it. But sometimes when you think about it, sometimes the skull or the body takes some pretty hard hits or blows, and there has to be some mechanisms to deal with that. When you do jargon in a document, like in your consumer report, you can always explain jargon in context. And so what you can do, you can write it in the context of the sentence. A second point that you can do is you can put it in parentheses right after you use the jargon. So um, I don't know, like a myocardial infarction would be a heart attack. So you could put that into parentheses. Or if you have a great deal of jargon, like you're writing a consumer report and you're doing a product that people aren't familiar with. So, for instance, like one of those portable GPSs that you would use if you were hunting, fishing, hiking, bike riding, and so on, quite some distance. Some of the terminology may not be familiar. So, what you can do is include an addendum or an appendix in the document at the very end and of the report, so people would be able to look up, what the jargon or terminology means. The other option you always have in technical writing, you can use the simile, metaphor, or an analogy. So a simile is to use like or as to make a comparison. So I remember that there was an accident on Route 819, and it was a semi truck, and so it hit these telephone poles at such an angle that it caused like two or three of them to tip over like Lego toys. And I thought, boy, that was a very, very good one. The guy that did my ceramic tile in my home, he said that the grout should feel almost as sand, fine sand at the beach. And so that's a metaphor. And an analogy, so you're not using like or as, but you're making a comparison. An analogy is when you use something, explain something unfamiliar using familiar, terminology. So I was listening to a person who was a computer expert, and he was explaining to someone, these group of elementary students, like how a computer network works for a company. And he said it's like a superhighway. So you have like the main highway, but you have branches, and so they lead to other roads. And so I thought, boy, that was a pretty clever way, to state it. So with, like I said, with jargon or acronyms or unfamiliar terminology, of course, you can do it in that way. Now, what I did want to mention to you for this particular class is that the quiz is due for October 30th by midnight, and there is no leeway on that one. That's due that night, and that's it. Everything else, like I said, is pretty much, I'm open to, but that one I'm not. There's a discussion board number 5 for Friday, um, the 6th of November, and you can take a look at that one when you get a chance. Actually, for next week, that's the only work that will be due, so it's a pretty light week. For November the 13th, there's a summary of sources of your consumer report, and all that one is like you're writing a memorandum and you're telling me what types of sources and information you're finding with your consumer report. It's actually helpful for me because I can kind of check to see where you are in writing your document, and it gives me an idea as far as if you're not headed in the right direction, or if you are. So, like for example, if you were going to be buying a new vehicle, then it helps me to see, where you're looking and what you're finding and so on. And if you're not heading in the right direction, then certainly I will give you, some suggestions. The other point that I wanted to mention to you is your resume assignment will be due for November the 13th. I'll talk about that on another day, but it's a resume and a portfolio, 3 documents in the portfolio. But I don't want to get into that now. I just want to give you a synopsis as far as like where we're headed. And then finally for November 20th, which is that week right before Thanksgiving, that's when you'll turn in your written instructions. And there are at least 5 pages with at least 5 visuals. They can be more than that. And there's quite a few examples and assignments for you to look at. And if you can at all, I definitely prefer that you do your own visuals, because like sometimes using clip art, like having a smiling chef mixing a bowl up, isn't so good in my opinion. And then like some people use Google Images, well, they can be okay, but I mean if you have decent images from a website or whatnot, you can definitely do that. One other option too, if you ever need to show something and you want to use pictures, you can use screenshots and so on, but you're definitely allowed to do a video. If it's sometimes showing a video, like I had a student that was showing how to change rings and pistons on a dirt bike, and then how to properly torque the heads. So he had his visuals, but he also actually showed him doing that work, and he kind of cut and pasted and condensed it. But to me, that was, really, really helpful. The same thing like saddling a horse, to really cinch the saddle on properly and to get a position right. Sometimes in showing that with a visual is okay. I mean, with a video, you can always do that. And then there's like one discussion board due for the 20th. And just some advice to you, and then I'll conclude, is for this class and all your other classes, don't think, oh my God, I have all this work to do. The only thing that I do in the work that I do in teaching and then my other involvement here at the college is I don't think too far ahead. I just think I'm going to do this in the next hour, and I'm going to work on this because sometimes in the summertime, I might have 135 or 140 students, and I don't think like, oh my God, I have 25 hours of work to do. All I do is start reading and start working on it, and I get it done eventually. So, obviously you have to have a plan, but, don't panic, and eventually you get it done. So anyhow, that's my tip for the day, and that's it. I'm almost at 10 minutes. Thanks.